Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. You are now listening to the Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's grow!
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Adam McChesney, and I want to thank you for being here today. We are live from Half Coast Studios here in St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you to Half Coast for this amazing setup and for sponsoring the show. If you are looking to start your podcast or take your current one to the next level, then you definitely need to come check out what these guys have going on here. Contact them today for a free consultation. And if you're listening, please be sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. We would love for you to share this content on social media by tagging me, and that way we can get these incredible messages from our guests out to more people. Today, we have another great episode lined up for you today. I have known this guest. I met him originally earlier this year at our first TCC event back in January through Winweight Consulting. It's been an absolute pleasure watching his journey and transformation over this year. I didn't realize how much transformation's actually happened, and I'm excited to dig into that today. He is making massive changes in his life that are impacting him both personally and professionally. I look up to this guy from a distance. It's been incredible, and I'm super blessed to have him in my circle. My guest today is Les Brannen. Les is the owner of Mountain High Mulch and currently lives in Marietta, Georgia with his family. Les, welcome to the show.
Man, Adam, I am super excited, dude. Thank you so much for having me. I've been listening for a while. I even listened to your first one. So I never thought that I would have an opportunity to share the stage with you. So thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, and I appreciate the support. I remember you were one of the first people that tagged me in the post and were like, man, I'm listening to your stuff. So, man, I appreciate that, and I'm super blessed to have you here today. A couple of weeks ago, just for the audience, Les hopped on our monthly call with the Champion Circle group, and just hearing his progression over the last year is phenomenal. So I'm really excited to dive into that today and just learn more about Les, as we always do on these episodes. If you're listening for the first time or you've listened since the beginning, we like to compare our guests and their entrepreneurial journey to that of the beer brewing process. Thus, we came up with the name Entrebrewer. So, Les, we're going to walk you through a series of questions, just kind of starting out with where you're at right now in business, and tell us about where you're at, kind of where you came from, and what that progression has looked like. So let's get to know Les a little bit better.
Sure. So like you said, I own Mountain High Mulch. I have two partners, and we are in our fourth year of business. And our specialty, our niche is blower trucks. We have really large trucks. They're called express blower trucks that blow in mulch and soil. That's the premises of our business. After year two, we opened a landscape supply yard, really opened things up for us. And for the past 4 years, we've opened two businesses and have been grinding for 3. And this past year has been an amazing journey, just mentally, physically, in life. Learned more in the past year than I did the previous 3 years. But personally, I have 3 children, all teenagers, 1 in college, married to my beautiful wife, Jennifer. I come from a little small town in South Georgia, and I'm loving living life at the moment.
I love it, man. And you can literally hear from the way that you talk and see the expression and see everything that you share in the Champion Circle, but just on your social media in general. It's been amazing to see the transition. And obviously we didn't really know each other back in January, but I know you were mentioning that, and we kind of all feel that way, is maybe some of that imposter syndrome, or should I really be in this room? And you've taken it and you've ran with it. So I definitely want to get into some of this stuff a little bit deeper. But for you this year, like, what has been the biggest change, whether it's mentally, physically, what you've been taught, like what shifted for you?
Yeah, so I was actually reflecting on that this week, and I was out on vacation last week. So I try to do a lot of reflecting while I'm on vacation, and very grateful for what I have. But I was looking, and I think one of the biggest things that I did the past year was hire a coach and become part of that TCC. And once I I started working with Mike, and we got my head right. Things began to open up. I was in a place, say last year this time, where we had, like I said, opened 2 businesses, thought I had things rolling, just wasn't sure what the next move was for me, feeling a bit lost in my journey in life. So hiring a coach, looking that man in the mirror and really identifying who I was, really identifying, getting intentional with what I wanted in life was the biggest pivot this year for me. I think before I have just been grinding to grow and growing out of pride, not growing out of living life. We had a call last week, and the guy on the call was talking about, growing to the lifestyle that you want. And I think for the past 3 years, we grew to a prideful moment. We grew to having more trucks and having more equipment and having more people on our team. And we didn't grow internally. We didn't grow ourselves. We didn't grow personally. So this past year, I've done a lot of reflecting. And I've had some moments where I've had to go to a really deep, dark place to find myself. And that was really good for me. I started 75 Hard in January and finished it. And, since then, that has propelled a lot in my life. I'm still doing 2-a-days. It's not just 75 days for me. It's a lifestyle. I think I'm on over 255 Ks for the year right now, just being consistent in the morning. And it doesn't matter if it's 75 Hard, if it's a program, it's not, it's just life now. So, getting control of some alcohol, letting alcohol base some decisions through the grind, through that pressure cooker of being an entrepreneur, which way you want to grow. Everybody's looking at you. There's a lot of pressure. I think I used alcohol for some excuses, and laying off of that, getting a plan, not allowing alcohol to make decisions for me in my life has really changed the way I'm approaching life now. I'm making much more healthier decisions. I feel better about the growth of our company, and I feel better about the growth of my family. My family is the number one thing that drives me right now. So serving others has become a very important thing for me this past year. Instead of just serving myself, looking myself in the mirror, identifying who that man is, getting into that dark place, coming out of it, and then just having small wins throughout the year has propelled just a journey for me this year that I didn't think that was inside of me. I feel alive now. I feel like I have, vision boards of what I want to accomplish. We can get into all that, but I tend to ramble a little bit. Sorry.
No, you're good. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. And I think what you analyzed in just a year in the transformation is a couple things. Is people think that in order to make massive shifts and to truly find themselves and maybe find that purpose or mission in their life, that it's going to take years. And you're a perfect example that you just have to tackle it head on. And I think the transition that you talked about, whether it's alcohol, whether it's literally anything, is so many of us as entrepreneurs go through that same cycle where we're growing to grow. I was at a conference about 2 months ago where Jesse Itzler talked about bigger isn't better, better is better. And that was really something that has stuck with me since. And I have made a pretty big shift in my life, just becoming sober about 50 days now, realizing that all of the things that I was trying to do in business was the lifestyle of what I thought people wanted to see. Thought people loved to see growth, revenue, but when you lose everything in the process, you lose yourself, you start to lose relationships, you start to negatively impact everything that you touch. It becomes no fun. And so I really like I just love your story, man. So I appreciate you sharing that. The next thing that I'd love to get into is obviously the ingredient aspect of what has made you successful over the course of your entrepreneurial career. So with beer, obviously great beer is made from great ingredients. What are three main things, if you had to pinpoint them, that have made you successful thus far?
Yeah, so, a lot of people don't know this, but prior to starting a mulch company, I was in the restaurant business for 20 years. And I ran a chain of restaurants. I was a director of operations for a restaurant chain and had 13 to 15 restaurants. So I learned a ton in that business about servant leadership and culture and branding. And I took those concepts and brought it to the mulch industry. I think my ability to connect with others through a servant leadership mentality is number one. I think number two is culture. We always tell people that we're in the people business. We just happen to be selling mulch. You've got to have that culture. Without the right people, you don't have a business. I feel like our people, our crew, our associates are the number one asset within our company. I think three is we've established lanes for departments within our company this year. And once we've established those lanes, we're keeping everyone in those specific lanes. And now it's my job growing into that CEO to make sure that those lanes that everyone's staying in their lane and they're not crossing over. So I think that was our biggest thing before this year is there were a lot of people doing a lot of jobs, getting in a lot of people's lanes, and that was causing confusion on structure and processes and growth. So I'd say ability to connect with others, the servant leadership mentality, culture, and establishing lanes in our company. Just top three, I would think, come to mind.
Those are big ones for sure. And, I talk with a lot of business owners on the digital marketing side, and they're going through all sorts of issues and problems and things in business, as we all are, right? And the one thing that I think that us as entrepreneurs, we easily do is we overcomplicate the simple things. Doesn't matter what business that you're in, but those three things that you mentioned translate and play in any business. And so, yes, the deliverables of what you're doing, in your case, obviously the mulch and everything that you guys have going on is the deliverable, but you have to have that servant leadership. You have to have the people in place, and without people, you cannot scale. You cannot do what you guys do so well without them. And then the best part, because I'm going through this transition as well, is keeping everybody in their lane, but transitioning into that CEO role, which for everyone involved it's an exciting process, but it's a process in and of itself that takes you out of the business, and you're really focused on how am I the quarterback of this company, and obviously how you push things forward. So I love that. What has that? I'm curious, not only for I'm sure the audience is as well, but for myself, what has that transition been like into the CEO role, and provide some insights and feedback on how that process is going?
Before, when obviously I think there's a certain grind that you have to go through when starting a business. That's just part of the process. But that grind needs to last so long. When I started the business, we have huge trucks. So I was a truck driver on these trucks. I went to truck driving school to learn how to drive these humongous trucks. So, we're on the trucks, we're blowing the mulch, we're sending the invoices, we're making the callbacks, we're doing APs, we're in charge of everything. And, you get burnout real quick. And that's what I was referring to before, is that burnout turns into excuses of unhealthy habits. And now that we have started establishing those lanes, I've got two partners, Eric and Misael. I've been able to step out of the business, not work in the business, but work on the business more. Obviously, we all know that's something that has to happen, but it hasn't been an easy process for us to go through. There'll be times where going through this process, we want to punch each other in the mouth, but we don't. We love each other. Now we want to hug each other, not punch each other in the mouth, because we see that through processes, through systems, through identifying responsibilities in each other's lanes, that we're much more happier and we're making healthier decisions together. And that I'm giving myself permission to let those two leaders make mistakes, and that's okay. And by being able to make mistakes, that's how you learn new processes. Before, someone would make a mistake and I would just blow off the handle. We were always good leaders. We just weren't very good entrepreneurs, is what we're finding out. So falling into that CEO role, I'm able to pour into my leaders, which they pour into their leaders, and just trickles down to the customer, which is the most, that's a very important part of a business, is someone who pays you. So if they're not getting that experience that starts with the leaders, then I think that's where you see a lot of businesses fail on the front end, because a lot of times those CEOs or those leaders, they're not in front of the customers, but that message that you're purveying down to those employees are the last one touching your customers. So it all starts with us, how we're approaching our leaders to approach the customers. So for me, being in that CEO role is a much healthier place for me to help facilitate our leaders to make decisions on the ground level.
Love it. Yeah, no, it's definitely a transition and a process of itself. But when you make that leap of faith and you do it the right way, and you have the right people surrounding you, it makes the world a difference. So appreciate you giving some insight.
Yeah, we've had some processes too on, one of our number one things is Monday morning huddles, where we get the whole crew together from 6:30 to 7, have high fives and talk about opportunities. It's a good way to start the week. And then I meet with our leaders once a week on one-on-ones, and that has to be every single week. So that transitioning from, wide open, gunslinging to that stability has been a game changer this year for us.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know Les, the Monday morning huddles are awesome. So I've seen some videos of them, and he definitely gets the crew and the team ready to go. So if you're not doing Monday morning huddles, we implemented them earlier this year, and it's awesome just to bring everybody together. We do it obviously virtually and remote, but Eric and Les know how to get the team riled up for sure. So love that. So the next thing that we like to get into is obviously the brewing process in general. Great beer, as we all know, doesn't necessarily happen overnight, nor does entrepreneurship. So obviously you guys have made some incredible progress this year, but talk to us, whether it's in the business or personally, what have some of the ups and downs? I know you've talked about it a little bit, but what are some of those ups and downs in the journey and some highlights along the way?
Sure. Some of the downs were those first 3 years of grinding, like I talked about, driving the truck, send all the invoices. We had cash flow problems. We would grow and we would continue to purchase equipment without understanding really what the value of that equipment was. We just would buy it because the demand was there. It wasn't a very smart move on our part, but not allowing us to properly plan and plan what our next move was as far as equipment, or opening a retail yard, or hiring another driver. Those were some of the downs that we saw, because we would find ourselves on the side of the road with a broken down truck, and then we would have to call the customer. Just that grind of not being stable and not having processes, not having systems. Those were some of the major downfalls. And, I just came back from vacation, and I was talking with Eric about in the years past when I would come back from vacation, I really didn't know what I was walking into that Monday coming back. And it was a very insecure feeling of, okay, it's going to be 5 a.m. I got to get on this truck. I'm not sure what's happened this past week when checking in with them. The difference now, I come back on Monday morning, they've completely redone the office, made a huge break room, hired 2 people, and starting to train a retail yard manager, and said, hey, if you want to go ahead and take another week, we're okay. So some of the downs and some of the ups of those transitions this past year, even from last year, have been massive. And it's been from from getting organized and getting our core values and operating through those core values, processes, systems, just evolving into a business versus just a couple of guys that had an idea of starting a blower truck company and not having a plan going in. So some of the ups is I plan 2 times a year an owner meeting where we go and we do 3 days of planning. We do 1 day of an adventure. We did class 4 and 5 rapids in a raft this past August. And we take the next couple of days and we do planning for the next 6 months and into the year. So we've already got a plan heading into the rest of the year. We already have goals for Q1 in 2023, what we want to accomplish. So getting ahead, being proactive, not reactive, has been one of the biggest ups for us this year.
Love it. Yeah, that proactiveness, it can really change the trajectory of a business when you're starting to get out ahead of things and you're planning. I think a lot of times people, as you mentioned, will start buying equipment, but not necessarily know the KPIs around that equipment. The longevity of them, how many jobs you need in order to make that profitable, things like that. So really appreciate your insights on that. I think that's amazing. The next part that we like to get into is the fermentation and conditioning. So obviously part of the process for the beer brewing is testing out a beer, seeing what it tastes like, and figuring out what needs to be changed in order to make it that much better. So for the entrepreneur process, we like to learn a lesson that you have learned over your course of being an entrepreneur that could help save someone years worth of mistakes. What would that be?
I would say if I had to go back and hire a business coach a couple of years ago to help me navigate some of these decisions, that's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned. I was very hesitant to hire a business coach early on last year. Just it wasn't right time financially. I really didn't know what that meant. But having that coach that I knew I could call anytime or text, I knew I had calls every other week. Didn't really help me make decisions, but helped me navigate tough decisions, not only mentally, personally, but also in the business. And like I said earlier, getting off the truck, you've got to get out of your business. Not working in your business, but working on your business is the biggest lesson that I've learned. Once I've started working on my business and serving people, just serving myself, the sky is a limit. We have tripled our revenue this year, and I've worked less than I have in the past 3 years. But I feel more stable in our little village at Mountain High Mulch with our people and our systems, our processes, and our growth going into 2023 than I ever have. It's a great feeling.
Man, that is kudos to you. It's been amazing to see that. And I love hearing that, especially when people are putting in the work like you and your team over at Mountain High Mulch. I think 2 things, that he mentioned there that I think is a pretty common theme with a lot of our guests on here is working on your business instead of in it. That's just a no-brainer. But the second aspect is hiring that coach. Whether you go into a mastermind or a program in a group setting, or you hire a one-on-one coach, or you hire a one-on-one coach that luckily at TCC, we also have that group setting with a lot of support. But I think so often people are looking at it as an expense, which is the wrong way to do it. And they're not looking at the overarching effect and the return on investment. It's so tough to put a return on investment on what we get out of that group because it's not just business related. It's personal, it's professional as entrepreneurs, things like that. So I really love you diving into that there. The next thing and the final thing that we'll kind of walk through in this process. So obviously once we have our beer ready to go, it's the distribution. We're taking it to market and selling it. So for Mountain High Mulch, what's next? I know you guys have had a lot of growth this year, but excited to hear what your plans are for the future.
Yeah, so we have been working hard just on our SOPs, our standard operating procedures. We really want to get those locked in at 100%. We know if we're going to have the growth that we want to, that we're envisioning for next year, we've got to get those locked in. We're about 90% there. It's exciting to have that just resource for new hires coming in, for new leaders coming in. I think that we're at a point now where we have grinded for 3 years and then taken this past year with the massive growth that we've had. And we want to see what the next year brings as 2023 comes a bit organically. We've got goals and we have visions, but first and foremost, we want to make sure that we're growing and creating the lifestyle that we want. So if that means that dipping into 8 figures next year is what we're going to do, then we're going to do it living a healthy lifestyle. We're not going to overgrow our flex. We're not going to overflow our reach. So for us, we're looking, the next 1,000 days. Well, what's the next 3 years look like for us is what we're looking at. So a lot of the wins that we've had this year are going to be stretched out a lot further, but they're going to be 10 times the small wins we've had this year. So, we've got visions of opening more retail yards. We've got visions of buying more blower trucks. But for the first 6 months next year, we're going to just lock in on becoming an extremely healthy company. And that can be through our people, through our revenue, and through our profits. We want to be extremely healthy all the way around.
Love it, man. The healthy aspect is something that a lot of people lose or forget or never even get to. So I love that that's where you guys are going. You guys are putting the work in, continue doing some amazing stuff. I'm excited to see what that looks like for you guys throughout the rest of this year, 2023 and beyond. Les, that kind of wraps everything up today. Any last pieces of advice for our audience? Anything else that you would like to share with them today?
I would say it's never too late. I'm one of the oldest ones in our TCC deal, and I had a 20-year corporate career. And I wore starch shirts and starch pants to work for 20 years and hung it up for cowboy boots and Levi's and, T-shirts. And I'm happier now than I've ever been in my life. So if you've got any insecurities about going for it or starting a business, I would say it's never too late, and invest in yourself. If you don't invest in yourself, you can invest in others around you. Being a part of this champion circle this year with a group of like-minded entrepreneurs like yourself has been life-changing for me. Just the support that we need as entrepreneurs. Just know that you don't have to make decisions by yourself. You don't have to do everything by yourself. There are a group of entrepreneurs that are going through the same thing as you right now. And I encourage you to find that support somewhere and lean into it. Don't run away from it. And the more I leaned into it, the more positive results I've gotten this year.
Man, I love it. That was a great way to end this episode on. Definitely lean into those things. Take advantage of them. Opportunities are literally anywhere and everywhere out there. Les, where can we connect with you on social media, websites, things like that? We'll put that all in the show notes, but that way the audience can follow your journey as well.
Yeah, sure. So our company is mountainhighmulch.com, and we are on Facebook and Instagram at Mountain High Mulch. And personally, Instagram at Brannen Les, and Facebook, Les Brannen.
Awesome, Les. Well, thanks so much for coming on today. It was a fun episode. Really appreciate your support, and looking forward to seeing you next week in Arizona, man. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, I am too, man. Thank you so much for having me, and I'll see you next week.
Awesome. Let's talk to you then. And I want to thank you to the audience again for tuning in to today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share our content. Leaving a 5-star review goes a long way. And thank you again to Half Coast Studios. If you're here in St. Louis and looking to start your podcast, then seriously come check out what they have going on here. We'll see you all next week. And remember, entrepreneurs aren't born, they are brewed.
I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm born to prove. Thank you for listening to Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney.